Ladies and gentlemen and kids, welcome to the Board of County Commissioners agenda setting and work session for June 30th, 2020. And for those of you that want to participate via conference call, you're welcome to join in. The phone number is 360-252-9020, extension 1234, or your PIN 1234. And you can listen, but not join in. By way of introduction, I'm John Hutchings. I am the chair of the board, and also present is Vice Chair Commissioner Ty Menser and Commissioner Gary Edwards, and Romero Chavez, our county manager. And I only see three of us on the screen. Romero, will you introduce others that might be there? I saw Shelley for a moment.
Yes, sir. I have Shelley Slaughter. I have Tim Wilson, Maya Tipo, Kelly Murno, and I have, can't read it. Oh, sorry. Paula Crockenwell. I'm sitting a little bit, far away from the screen. I'm getting old.
Yeah. Well, I got Tim and Paula Cockrell is in, Cracknell is in. I'm sorry, I mispronounced the name, dagnabbit, because I'm from this far to the screen as well. And who else?
And I believe,
Well, I guess
that's all for now.
Okay, good. So we have an action-packed agenda, and let's kick it off. We're going to have a 2 o'clock BoCC meeting. First one we've had in quite some time, and that'll be weird, but it'll be nice, and welcome back. So let's start with the COVID-19 update. And I think we've got, there we go, Shelley Slaughter, Director of Public Health and Social Services with us. Go ahead, Shelley.
Good morning, commissioners.
Morning.
So for the latest data that we have as of yesterday afternoon in Washington state, there are 32,253 confirmed cases of COVID-19, 1,320 deaths. We continue to see cases rise statewide in Washington state, with 5.9% people testing positive for COVID-19. In Thurston County, we have 251 confirmed cases of COVID-19. 33 have been hospitalized. 63% of those hospitalized have report underlying conditions. We've unfortunately had 4 deaths related to COVID-19 in Thurston County, a total of 2 congregate care setting outbreaks, with 1 still under investigation at this time. Our hospital capacity continues to be high. Currently, I looked at the dashboard this morning, and the ICUs are quite full. Our hospitals are full and stressed. So that is something that we continue. That is something that we continue to monitor. We also are starting to see more cases of young people. And so that's something that we are keeping an eye on and reminding people to please wear face coverings. It is now required by state law. And please continue to wash your hands, stay home if ill, and get tested as quickly as possible if you think that you may have COVID-19. And that concludes my report for right now, and I will entertain any questions that you have.
Is Diana Yu with us as well?
Dr. Yu is unable to attend the meeting today because she is in an important meeting with our disease control and prevention staff related to COVID-19.
Okay. Commissioner Menser, go ahead.
Shelley, you mentioned 5.9% testing positive statewide. Do we know the Thurston number? Because on Thurston, we've been right at 2%.
Our Thurston rate is still at 2%, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Edwards, go ahead, sir.
Yes, Shelley, you mentioned that the hospitals maybe are being stressed, but how many actual cases of this virus are in the hospital today?
As of this morning, there was a total of 7 that I saw hospitalized in our local hospital system.
Yeah.
Shelley, are those Thurston County residents or from other parts of the region? Just curious.
That also, thank you, Ramiro, for asking that clarifying question. The total number includes people from other counties.
And consequently, the stress must be being developed then for other issues?
I don't know what the factors may be. There are many things that can increase the need for healthcare and hospitalization access other than COVID-19, but it's a really important measure that we take a look at to ensure that we have enough surge capacity in case we continue to see greater increases in COVID-19 in our community, because we want to make sure that we have enough hospital beds, ICU beds, ventilators, PPE, and staff to support our entire community. So I'm just simply pointing out that, when our hospitals are full, that's one of the measures that we take a look at. Really important that we continue to keep COVID-19 transmission low as possible in our community to protect our hospital capacity.
Oh, okay, but I guess maybe I heard you wrong. Did you say the hospitals are reaching a stress level? Is that kind of where you were going with that when you commented about being stressed? Could you clarify that?
Yes, I was just, sir, just pointing out that we monitor our hospital capacity every day. And that is one of the measures that we look at very closely. And I noticed this morning, and a trend since our weekly call that we have with our hospital executives, they also pointed out that that was a concern. They're seeing increased hospitalizations. Our hospitals here in Thurston County always have a high capacity, especially Providence St. Peter Hospital, given that it is a regional hospital. And it's just something that is something that we monitor closely.
How many total beds are there in our hospital, the regional hospitals that we have locally here that we're counting? I guess what I'm getting at, I don't want to over stress the public thinking that we're full of COVID clients. And if we've got 7 in there from the region, that's good. But how many hospital beds are there here in Thurston County that we're keeping track of?
I don't have that number in front of me right now, but I could certainly get that for you later and get you the information off the dashboard so that you can see what the total number of beds are and the current total capacity.
Okay, I don't need a total number, but I mean, isn't there hundreds of beds in the Thurston County hospital system?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, I just want the public to be very aware, yes, we're dealing with a serious situation here, but with 7 in the hospital from the region, I don't want to overstress the public's concern. That's my line of questioning, guys. Sorry. I'm done. Thank you, sir.
I think one other thing that I will note about mentioning the hospital and healthcare capacity is as non-urgent medical procedures have returned and resumed, that tends to fill up the hospital beds. And also, as we are in phase 3 now, more and more people are out and about, and that can increase things like accidents and other things that typically can fill up our hospitals. Our hospitals are committed to maintaining surge capacity in case we do have more cases of COVID-19.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. That's where I was going was with 251, and you said 60-some%. I don't remember the stat. I don't want people to think that our hospitals and ICUs and ERs are stressed now to the point that they're full of COVID-19 patients. They're not, clearly.
Not due to COVID-19.
Thank you. And so with that, if things remain static, well, that's okay. We can survive. If things get better, that's a great thing. But how close are we to percentage-wise to being downgraded to phase 2 again?
Well, again, when there are many factors that go into evaluating our ability to stay in phase 3. So that includes not only the number of cases that we have in a 2-week time period, which is 25 for 100,000 population. So for us, that would be 74. We're not in the last 2 weeks. We have seen an increase, and we've seen an average of probably 5 to 7 cases per day. Again, I noted that demographic had shifted a little bit for us,
Yeah.
but generally that is a factor, as well as our hospital system capacity, which is why I bring it up in the COVID-19 report. Regardless of COVID cases, that's another measure we look at, because it's our healthcare system response. We also look at how we as a public health department are able to handle the number of cases coming in. So ensuring that we have enough staff to do investigation, contact tracing, and that we have adequate testing available in our community. So those are all things that we take a look at, that Washington State Department of Health takes a look at. And if we start seeing stresses or challenges in any of those areas, and in particular the number of cases, then that would trigger a conversation that we would have with the state. But we're not, that is not a concern at this time. We're doing well. Part of the reason why we work so hard to prepare to go to phase 3 is because we know that as more people go out and about in the community, that we likely will have more cases, and we need to be ready to handle that. And we currently are.
Very good. Thank you for that information. And I think we're doing so well because I think a lot of people are taking it seriously and masking up and maintaining some responsibility. Thank you, Shelley. Any other questions, commissioners? No. Shelley, thank you very kindly. Press on.
Thank you.
Thank you for the work you're doing.
Shelley.
That takes us to, Romero, please.
Shelley just unplugged, but you may notice Dr. Yu is not joining us today. And as her tenure in Thurston County is coming to an end, I just want to publicly express my deep appreciation for everything what she has done over the last 4 months to help us navigate and go through this pandemic. Honestly, I don't know what Thurston County could have done if we didn't have Dr. Yu coming out of retirement and give us a hand in going through this process. As you know, we have a new health officer, Dr. Dimiana Al-Malik, and she will be joining us hopefully this meeting's coming next week. But I just want to take the time and publicly acknowledge the great work that Dr. Yu has done, not just for the county, but also for the citizens of the county. So my deepest appreciation.
Yeah, and today is her last day, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for reminding me of that. Because she did not have to come out. She did not need to come out of retirement, but she chose to, because that just shows the kindness of her heart and where her attitude and where her core values are, and that's to the community at large in which she lives as well. And to the oath that she swore. She's been beaten up and she's been patted on the back quite a bit of times, and I praise her too as well. She's done a wonderful job. I think she's a kind-hearted, compassionate, and a brilliantly smart lady, and helped us considerably through the last several months. So I thank Dr. Diana Yu very much for that. It was nice to see her again too after so many years. And I wish her the very best in her retirement now. All right, thank you. Shelley, will you pass that on?
I certainly will, sir. The staff are having a little bit of a Zoom celebration for her this afternoon. So I will certainly convey that to her, and also echo all the sentiments. It's been amazing to have Dr. Yu to work with, and she has been tremendous in helping us to navigate COVID-19 over these past several months. So I am so grateful to her, and so fortunate to have had the chance to work with her.
She has stamina and fortitude, because some of the vile comments that came in from the public, just a small select few of the public, she could have easily just said, tip her hat and say, I'm out of here, goodbye. but she didn't because she's a woman of courage. So yeah, thank you very much for me. Thank you.
You have been invited to participate on the Zoom meeting celebration at noon today, where staff from Public Health Social Services will have a goodbye to Dr. Yu. So it's already in your calendar, master calendar, so you're welcome to attend.
Got it. Thank you. I saw that too. Good. Thank you. Anything else, commissioners? Nope. Shelley, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, moving right on to homeless strategies. I believe we have, oh, here she is, Keely Marino. Go ahead, Keely.
What's the conference?
Good morning, Commissioner. Keely Marino with Thurston County Public Health and Social Services. Just a few things to talk about today. One is we're meeting with the shelter providers this afternoon, actually this morning, immediately following this meeting, to have a discussion about how we might put forward an application to the Department of Commerce around increasing our bed capacity for shelters. As you know, and as I've mentioned, the Department of Commerce has a shelter program grant that's going out to all counties. It's formulaic. It's based on population size. We are given, are able to utilize the funds in a number of different ways. They're willing to be as flexible as possible. They have stated, or Ted Kelleher from the Department of Commerce has stated, that he wants to say yes. They want to say yes to as many ideas as possible. So hotel vouchers, temporary encampments, our safe parking programs, as well as shelter beds are appropriate for this application process. It's due on the 17th of July, and so we're working diligently on that. Secondly, a very large encampment that is located along Deschutes Parkway, which is owned by private landowners. They put a 72-hour notice of eviction on the residents down there last Tuesday. I believe that the number of individuals that live in that encampment are at the minimum 50 and at the maximum about 70. The eviction was to occur on Saturday. However, that was delayed due to several rallies happening that day in downtown Olympia. And over the weekend, I was alerted that the Northwest Justice Project has reached out to the business or the landowners, excuse me, and have arranged a longer delay in order to figure out a place for these individuals to go. This is not public land, so the Boise versus Martin decision does not apply. They can be moved without another place to go. However, there is no place for them to go. So the concern is that they will just be in downtown Olympia, most likely. There are no shelter spaces available. The other camps are pretty full. So it's a big conundrum right now for the city of Olympia and for those working with those individuals in the encampments. And those,
Okay.
that's,
Question, Commissioner Menzer?
Keely, I'd seen this camp, but it seems like it's growing or it's moving, because as you drive on I-5 northbound, like where the sign for Pacific, so it's before Pacific Avenue exit, that camp is becoming closer and closer to the freeway. And just yesterday or the day before, I saw a couple of law enforcement officers there parked on the freeway, but actually engaging with the folks in the camp. And I was just wondering if there's some development there that you're aware of, that we should be aware of.
I think the camp that you're referring to is Wheeler Street and not Deschutes Parkway. Wheeler Street, all I know, and the latest reports are that the city of Olympia, in conjunction with the Department of Transportation, provided temporary dumpsters, and did a giant cleanup of that camp last week. It is also a camp where there was a structural fire at the beginning of last week, I believe, or over the weekend. No injuries from that fire. So I'm not sure. I know that they're making efforts to make it a little bit, to at least keep it more cleanly, but I'm not aware of why law enforcement were there.
Do you know the approximate size of that camp?
If I go on what was reported to me about a month and a half ago, that would be about 20 people there and about 12 over at Nickerson, which is on the other side.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Edwards, any questions of Keely?
No, sir.
Keely, I would ask, and perhaps, well, I'll ask, It seems to me there's been an influx of campers on Ensign Road at Martin Way up towards the hospital. Is that, my perception is it's increasing. Is that increasing?
I have definitely seen an increase over the months. Whenever I drive to Lily Road, that's my route, and I count, and there was about 26 vehicles I saw. Last year at this time, we were averaging between 9 and 14. So yes, there's been a significant increase. I know the city of Olympia has been working with them to make sure, at least at the minimum, to keep the sidewalks clear. I did notice yesterday that the sidewalks are not clear, that they are pretty full of stuff. And we haven't had our weekly meeting with the city of Olympia, so I don't have any updates on what the plans are.
Okay, but what's interesting is I see that area or that location increasing, but I don't see Deschutes Parkway decreasing. So I don't know where they're coming from, but you just helped me with some good information. Thank you. And I saw there was an article in the Olympian this morning about cities that are trying to arrest their way out of homelessness, and it doesn't seem to be working. And so some folks, let me just read this. This article was put together by the Howard Center for Investigative Journalism at the University of Maryland's Philip Merrill College of Journalism, in collaboration with journalism schools at the University of Oregon, Stanford University, Boston University, University of Florida, and the University of Arkansas and Arizona State University. It's very in-depth study, apparently. And it follows one gentleman, a homeless man who's 71 now, through his stages of homelessness over the last several years. And what they have found that just that one gentleman alone, that one homeless man, he spent just over 1,000 days in jail with a crushing debt of $41,300 in court costs, fines, and fees, and an estimated taxpayer tab of nearly $50,000. And that's just one man. And how many homeless folks do we have here locally in our jurisdiction? That's Okaloosa County in Florida.
Yeah.
So someone that says, well, they all got warrants, just arrest them. There's a place for them. That's very myopic and simplistic. And we can't afford that. So fix it, would you please?
Okay.
Help these poor folks. But I just turned people to the Olympians article this morning on cities trying to arrest their way out of homelessness, and it's not cost effective, that's for sure. Doesn't save lives. Maybe in some cases it does, where they're forced into some type of treatment, mental health or substance abuse. But I think that's folly to think that that's the majority of the cases. Any other questions or comments, commissioners? Romero? Nope. Keely, thank you very kindly. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Have a good day.
Now we're going into the review of the draft BoCC agenda for this afternoon, June 30th, 2020. And first thing, where are we here? That? Okay, here we go. Let's get back to the routine now. We'll call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. And we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Vice Chair Ty Menser, approval of the Tuesday agenda, allegedly, an opportunity for the public to address the board. Romero, do we have anybody that we know, any hot topics coming up? Might be budget.
I'm sure you have some public testimony, considering that it's the first time that we opening for public testimony in the last 3 months. So I'm expecting that you will receive public testimony this afternoon.
Okay. Commissioners, are you aware of any public comment that might be coming in? No? Okay. Then we have the county manager's update following up on citizen issues.
Yeah, I will provide a brief update as to what the board has done in the last 3 months while we have been in lockdown in a way.
All right, thank you. Then we move into agenda item number 3, the consent items. It's the auditor of financial services. And I'm going to presume that we've all had a chance to look at that. And then we get into department items. Agenda item number 4, CPET, Community Planning and Economic Development, setting a public hearing for the Rochester sub-area plan.
Yeah, Commissioners, you reviewed this item last week. This item is for you to consider setting a public hearing to take public testimony on the proposed draft of the Rochester sub-area plan update. This sub-area plan is an optional element of the Thurston County Comprehensive Plan, and it is listed as an item CP-7 on the 2020-2021 official comprehensive docket the board approved here a couple months ago. County staff has held many public hearings in order to do public outreach with the community, and there has been a great turnout in terms of the community engagement. We held 4 public open houses on February 24, 2018, March 8, 2018, November 7, 2018, and November 13, 2019. It also was held on the Rochester High School on March 30, 2018 with high school students. The Planning Commission held 4 study sessions on the sub-area plan, one on April 13, 2019, June 5, 2019, September 4, 2019, and November 6, 2019. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on January 8, 2020. And the Planning Commission has moved this proposal for your consideration for approval. Before the board takes a formal action in approving this plan, you need to hold a public hearing, and that is the intent of this item. And Shannon, she is available. If you have any questions related to this, because she's the planner who has been working on this plan.
So Shannon, would you introduce yourself and add anything supplemental to what Romero just gave us?
Hi, Shannon Shula, Associate Planner with CPAD. And yeah, I don't have really anything to add. I think Romero covered all of those topics very well.
All right. Commissioner Mentor, any questions or comments of Shannon regarding the sub-area plan?
Nope. Ready to move forward. It was, I think the board voted it as one of our top priorities, and it's great to see it nearing completion.
Commissioner Edwards, any questions of Shannon?
No, sir.
Shannon, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. And just by way of information, that public hearing will be in room 280, the Board of County Commissioners boardroom, but there will be an overflow depending on the size of the crowd that shows up down in 152 downstairs, room 152.
Yeah, that is correct, sir.
That takes us to, thank you. That takes us to agenda item number 5, Public Works, public hearing regarding the rate increases as petitioned by the Long Lake Management District Steering Committee.
Thank you, Commissioners, for your considerations to set a public hearing on Tuesday, July 21st, 3 in the afternoon, here in this room for you to take public testimony related to proposed rate increases on the Long Lake Management District. The Board of County Commissioners formed the Long Lake Management District in 2016 and adopted a rate structure for parcels within the district for the recommendations of affected residents. Resolution 15192 adopted the annual assessment of the Long Lake Management District and allowed for a maximum annual escalation for inflation of 5%. The annual escalation factor is coordinated with the Long Lake Management District Steering Committee, who will be recommending increases of 3% annually on the 21 and 22 biennium. Public Works has received a new petition from the Long Lake Management District ratepayers requesting the Board of County Commissioners to further increase their parcel assessment by $34 to accommodate future projects. RCW 36.61 pertaining to lake and beach management districts provides the authority to the Board of County Commissioners to alter the rates and charges imposed upon the lake management districts following a public process. That is the intent. You had a briefing last week related to this petition, and I believe the Long Lake Management Districts in full support, as well as the I believe the residents are in full support to this increase. And before you take legislative action for this increase, you need to hold a public hearing. And this is the intent of this particular item on your agenda this afternoon. Tim Wilson, the manager from Public Works of the Lake Management Districts and other functions of the businesses available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Tim, do you have anything you'd like to add to Romero's presentation?
Once I get unmuted.
Go.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tim Wilson, Water Resources Manager, Public Works. No, Romero summed it up very well. We had a briefing last week, and the steering committee is on board. This was a petition that came from the steering committee of Long Lake. Paula Cracknell, who's with us, is our aquatic resource specialist, and she will be presenting this afternoon.
Thank you. Paula, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't. Ramiro summed it up, and we would like to move forward with a public hearing for July 21st.
All right, thank you. Well, nothing but praise for you, Romero. Do my seatmates have any questions of staff about the project?
No, sir. No, sir.
Or about the hearing? No, nothing from Ty, nothing? Okay. Thank you very kindly. Thanks for joining in.
Thank you.
That takes us to agenda item number 6. The county managers, we will report in, the commissioners will, on work sessions and boards that we've attended. And then we'll go through our schedules for the week, and then we adjourn the meeting. Well, that's a pretty short agenda. It's a nice way to kind of feed ourselves back into it.
And just to, for the public's benefit, we will have an option for the public to come in. The room 280 is available for the public to come in to provide a verbal testimony they wish. We do have a capacity on room 280, which we will be putting enough signs to inform the capacity that we have. In the event that we reach capacity on room 280, we have already scheduled 152 as an overflow. The video system is working, and we will be informing the public who is in the overflow when it's time to come up and provide public testimony. The board meeting will be conducted via Zoom. Staff who's going to be presenting the items will be joined us via a Zoom meeting. The board members have the option to come and meet in room 280, meeting the requirements of phase 3. However, if the board members would like to join in room 280, I will ask you to wear a mask. You also, the board members, commissioners have the option to join via Zoom, as you have it right now. So it's really your decision as to how you want to participate on this. I just want to frame how we are going to be managing future board meetings under these conditions.
Thank you. You can see the chairs, how they're set up right now, and they're set up strategically to ensure proper distancing. Can you see how many people will fit in 280 at this time?
12 people.
12?
Yeah,
Okay, 12. Then the overflow will be downstairs in room 152 then.
that is correct.
Okay. All right, good. Thank you. Thank you for that preface information. Now we're moving into the agenda for Tuesday, July 7th, 2020. And we'll call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Edwards. Approval of the Tuesday, July 7th agenda and approval of the board meeting minutes from today. Then an opportunity for the public to address the board, public comment, and then the county manager's update. And both of those a little bit premature at this point. Number 3 is the financial services voucher list, and we'll get to that. And then we move into agenda item number 4A, the sole source exception for procurement of water quality monitoring equipment.
Yeah, for your consideration, Commissioners, is for you to approve a sole source exemption to purchase water quality equipment from YXLEM Incorporated for the amount of $13,000. This is a request from the Department of Public Health and Social Services, particularly the Environmental Health Division. They're in need to purchase this equipment, and the equipment is such that this particular outfit is the one who provides what the department needs. Internal to the process, before a sole source can be brought to your consideration. Staff needs to work with an application with the internal auditor, and the internal auditor has to agree that in fact this is sole source. The Department of Public Health Social Services has submitted an application and detailing and justifying why this is a sole source. And our internal auditor has signed and concluding that perhaps this is sole source, and that's the reason as to why this item is coming to your attention. Any questions on that?
Any questions?
No,
Guy or
sir.
Gary?
No.
That is the only agenda item. So I would think that depending on public comment might take longer than the entire meeting. However, there's likely going to be more agenda items added.
I do have two more items there is not included that you may see next week that I'd like to walk you through that.
Sure, please. Thank you.
But I think Commissioner Messing had a question on this item? No?
No, I was just saying that you answered the questions that you covered my questions, so I'm good.
Thank you.
So what are we adding?
So,
It'll be four B?
We're working with the Department of Public Works, and you will probably see two new items. One is for you to consider setting a public hearing for the Black Lake Special Use District. And they're also requesting an additional rate increase on their fees and assessments. You also held a briefing last week with the Black Lake Management District. And so you will see this item next week for you to consider setting a public hearing, for you to take public testimony before you take an action in, on increasing the rates on that particular Black Lake. That's an item that is coming up for you next week. The other
There will be,
okay.
those will be 5A and 5B?
It will be the Department of Public Works. It will be 5A, 5E. Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. And then the number 6 is the county manager. Goes for our routine.
I have another item.
Okay, thank you.
They may be coming your way as well, also from Public Works. So on June 17, 2020, the electrical controls for the Boston Harbor wastewater treatment plant suffered a catastrophic failure. That necessitated the plant to be run in a manual mode, which that's where we're currently performing those activities, requiring the plant to staff an extra 6 to 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it requires a lot of labor. The plant was designed to be controlled automatically, and the Department of Ecology also prefers this to be automized. And so we're in the process of securing this on an emergency procurement basis. And so let me take the board back. When we have this catastrophic failure on the electrical item, failure here at the courthouse, you declare an emergency to purchase the procurement process to address that emergency. This item is requesting for you to consider doing the same. Consider an emergency purchase of those services. And that is the item that you will see coming next week. And again, I've been working with staff from Public Works. This is an item that came up as an emergent issue. And we'll give you additional detail next week, but I'd like to give you a heads up, this is coming your way.
That will be 5C. Yeah, hang on.
Yeah, whatever nomenclature will land, I will make sure that it's correct.
All right, Commissioner Menser, you had your hand up first, I think.
I just, to repeat, Ramiro, when did you say the automatic controls failed?
On June 17, 2020.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Menser, Commissioner Edwards, go ahead, sir.
I guess I'd like to know just a little more. So it failed about 2 weeks ago, and we're burning up overtime? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
And how much did you say overtime a week are we using?
We'll put an extra 6 to 8 hours a day.
A day?
7 days a week.
7 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
In light of our budget, potential problems that we're having, is there any way we could expedite that emergency declaration to get that equipment purchased to fix this problem, because I hate to add up that bill over a month's period of time till we get it fixed. I think we're spinning our wheels and wasting money if we don't do something pronto, and I don't know what that means as far as what time frame we have available to us. I mean, are we under some restriction? Special meeting? Can we do it today? Can we vote on it tomorrow? Let's try to do something that makes sense for the taxpayers on this.
This item does make sense to the taxpayers, Commissioner.
Yes, I mean, sooner rather than later.
And we're expediting this process. Let me touch base with Public Works to see if they have the resolution ready, and the attorney has reviewed that. And this is the earliest they requested to be be put in front of you. But if the documentation is ready for you to take an action sooner, I will certainly bring that to your attention.
And what is gonna be just a rough estimate of the price?
While you're looking that up, I fully support it. If we're gonna do an emergency purchase, it sounds like an emergency, and it's costing money. Water's running out, money's running out, let's get it taken care of.
Yeah.
If we can. Go ahead, Romero.
So, and that will be part of the process, just to secure the purchase. I don't have an estimated amount at this point.
Okay, but I can't emphasize enough how important I believe this is.
It is. And
That we get on it sooner rather than waiting.
Yeah, that's the reason why I'm bringing this to your attention as soon as that became.
Thank you, thank you.
Good, thank you.
But again, if there is an opportunity to expedite this, I will certainly bring that to your attention for you to take an action.
And I would adjust my schedule to vote on it, or do telephone voting, or whatever it took to make this happen.
All right, anything else to add to the agenda, Romero?
No, those are the two items that you may see, well, yeah, coming.
Okay.
I think Robin wants to chime in.
Go ahead, Robin.
I will be adding the request to set a public hearing on the budget amendment.
There you go.
Will you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, Robin Campbell, Assistant County Manager.
Thank you. All right, good. And then the rest of that meeting is just cleaning up stuff that we normally do, our schedules and our reporting back. All right, now we're moving. What?
I did have a quick message from the Director of Public Works. This particular purchase is about between $50,000 and $60,000. And we do have budget on the Boston Harbor, and also the status is the staff is currently negotiating the contract even as we speak.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. Now we're going to
the beauty of technology.
yeah, when it works. Proclamations and awards. Doesn't look like we have any.
Not at this point. I think we need to start maybe going back and look at the upcoming month. Now the public is allowed to come in on your board meetings. So we'll bring a list of potential proclamations they may consider in the upcoming 2 months or so. But nothing for today.
Thank you. Next is advisory boards and commissions. And I know we have some applications here, but we also have Cultural Diversity and Human Rights Council discussion. Do you want to start with the applications that we have for solid waste, or do you want to go to this one first?
Let's go with the applications.
Okay, thank you.
So we received an application for the Solid Waste Advisory Committee.
Who's talking?
Amy Davis.
Oh, thank you. I know that, but I'm waiting for you to introduce yourself, Amy.
Acting clerk of the board.
Yes.
Thank you.
So this citizen, Mr. Greg Schoenbachler,
Joan Buckler.
has reapplied for the District 1 Citizen Representative position and the Agricultural Representative position that both expired in May. And he is a resident of District 1 and was formerly a member of the Lewis County Solid Waste Advisory Committee and currently serves on the Thurston County Farm Bureau. And so he has reapplied for his appointment.
So it's a reappointment?
Yes.
Reappointment, okay.
Has this solid waste advisory committee provided some feedback on this? Not yet.
No, not yet.
Well, I'll tell you what, I can't say enough about, Mr. Schoenbachler and what the value that he adds to these committees. But this is something I'll get information or feedback from my seatmates, but this is going to be for next week to decide, or we can decide, can we give you a thumbs up today, Romero?
I'm all in favor of appointing him back onto the committee as well.
Whatever the direction of the board.
Okay. Commissioner Menser?
That's fine.
Okay, yeah, let's do it then.
So we'll
3 thumbs up.
we'll bring the formal appointment this afternoon.
Great, thank you. Very good. We have okay, this is the Cultural Diversity and Human Rights Council.
Yeah, before you get to that point, I received an email from Ms. Cheryl Haywood. She is the executive director of the Timberline Regional Library. And currently they have a vacancy in Thurston County on the board of trustees. And she's asking for your help in securing a member that represents Thurston County. She states the candidate should represent, if possible, the unincorporated areas of Thurston County. Some of the skills that this person should have: knowledge, quality, and experience, which includes look holistically at all the 5 county library districts, including our diverse patrons and communities. And she's asking again the board members on your dealings with the community, and we will advertise this in our website as well. If you have anybody that perhaps need this qualities that I just described, and is interested in serving on the Timberline Regional Library Board of Trustees, we'll welcome that application.
Thank you. So we're going to do that recruitment with her or for her?
I think it's with her. This is not a request for an active recruitment. This is a request for your help.
Okay.
She's not requesting for you to go with an active recruitment. In your dealings with the public, if you see a citizen who might be interested and meets the criteria, for you to encourage for that citizen to apply.
Very good. Smart of Cheryl Haywood to do that. She's a brilliant lady. All right. So Cultural Diversity and the Human Rights Council.
Yeah, this is a follow-up item to the letter to the community the board sent related to the killing of Mr. George Floyd, and some of the strategies that you wanted to implement, which this was one of them. And under ordinance 10365, the board county commissioners passed on June 21st, 1993, created the Thurston Council on Cultural Diversity and Human Rights. And there is very prescriptive as to what the intent of that council was. For instance, the purpose of the council shall be to promote multicultural diversity and human rights education, support diverse cultural activities, and provide a forum for interactions between diverse cultural groups. The council exists to facilitate the protection of human rights and equality of opportunity by educating the community about the value of cultural and ethnic diversity. The council is authorized to take the following actions in accomplishing this particular function: develop and coordinate programs celebrating ethnic and cultural diversity suitable for local schools. Number 2, form a speakers bureau for service and community club programs, which shall provide speakers on current topics concerning ethnicity, cultural diversity, and human rights. prepared newspaper columns to appear at the regular intervals, which shall express concerns of ethnic and cultural minorities and comments on human rights issues. Take other actions as intended to increase public awareness of ethnic and human rights issues. This board was in place since then, I believe, and through that process, the Board of County Commissioners set aside a budget amount in which this board and commission was deliver the actions that I just described. Just happened in 2 years after this commission was formed, the Board of County Commissioners then appoint me to be part of this member. So I serve as a member of the council, I believe between 1994 to 1997. And one of your own, Ruth Elder, was the administrative staff. They provided assistance to this group. So I know firsthand as to what the activities this group had at that time. As any cycles of the budget as we go through this year, back then there was a reduction on the budget, and at some point the budget was eliminated for this particular council. And at that point, the council was dissolved because it wouldn't have the means to continue with the mission as stated. That was the reason why the council ceased to provide the activities listed on this resolution. And again, I just want to make it, to bring you back some of the items that you stated you'd like to consider. For you, and to start talking among yourselves, board members, whether you'd like to continue with the same objectives outlined in this resolution, again, ordinance, 10365, which passed back in 1993, or you would like to consider a different resolution adding other items that you may see fit. Anyways, I just want to bring this to your attention, and hopefully you can provide some direction to staff.
Thank you. This ordinance is 27 years old. And I don't know what has been documented to show what has been done or when it ceased or why it ceased. And the purpose of the council in section number 2 is pretty well stated, but being almost 30 years later, we might want to revisit some of the wording and or intent in the document. For example, section 4, the membership of the council shall be culturally and ethnically diverse. I don't know what that means. I know what it means, but does it mean the same thing to everybody else? Section number 5, appointment and removal of council members. The last line, a council member may be removed by the Board of County Commissioners for misconduct or malfeasance. So it's an actual type thing rather than just political. Is that something we want to revisit or not? In terms of the council members serving 3-year terms, and there's no term limits. So just some of these things and nuances, since it's 27 years old, maybe we want to revamp that and freshen it up or add additional items in there as well. But I think it's a good idea to start it again, rekindle and get it going. That's perfect timing for that too, obviously. Seatmates?
I'm all ready to do it when we get there.
Ramiro, do you happen to have the year that the council was disbanded?
That seems to be, I didn't quite get to that point, but I believe it was closer to early 2000s.
And your understanding is it was for, but do you know what the budget was that was?
I think it was a very minimum, $10,000 or so, or less than that. So
to your recollection, the one thing that I note is it's a very large council involving appointees from the various municipalities. Was your recollection that the council was well attended and that those positions were all filled by the 8 municipalities? I mean, or was it a struggle? Some of our boards, we struggled to even get a quorum. Do you remember how well attended it was?
So I served 2 terms, and at that time, there was not much shift on the membership, and it was well attended. And in fact, we used to meet here in room 280. I think it was a Wednesday evening or something. So it was attended. I don't recall it was a struggle to have members to participate. So from that aspect, now, if you ask me a different question, I can give you a different perspective on the council itself. For instance, you know, my experience was, as you can see, it's more about phasing out, meaning a phase to the community as to how this council can provide education. We used to attend a lot of fairs, a lot of events, community events. We used to have a booth. We used to have handing out a lot of documentation related to cultural diversity and human rights. But I think from my perspective, what it was missing, a little more active role as to how this council can provide some recommendations internal to county business and county government. And perhaps you as a legislative authority can probably implement larger water policies. So it was more of a one way out, but it was not, as you can see on this ordinance, was not necessarily something that perhaps the board was looking from the board itself to bring some suggestions, both as a county government and as a community. So if the board wants to explore this, that might be something you may consider.
Okay, good questions.
I would just add to for my seatmates, and again, I think that we could use this mechanism and maybe some revision, as Commissioner Hutchings suggests, in a positive way. But I just wanted you guys to know there's going to be a proposal, I believe, from the prosecuting attorney or otherwise for a race and equity connected subcommittee on our Law and Justice Council. Not that that would be a replacement for this, but I just wanted you to be aware of that, because that may be a place where we really, if that is approved by Law and Justice Council, that would be a place maybe where we really look at like nitty gritty, some justice related issues that have been in the news lately. And so just to have, I just wanted to throw that out so you kind of have an idea of what, you know, how this group might, so we could think about how this group could be complementary to that, not duplicating it, but also not, you know, but also, you know, fitting in a way that's productive, because obviously there's a lot of issues that we could tackle.
There are, and it's kind of encouraging to hear that the Law and Justice is going to expand a bit. And if this is, the intent is promote multicultural and diversity and human rights, that's human rights for everybody. And that would include any of our marginalized population, LGBTQ, mentally ill. It could be any marginalized group, like I say. So yeah, this needs to be freshened up, but I still would like to move on with this proposal. This will get this going again.
Ramiro, how would we go about it? Who would, like, if the board just directed a refresh of this, whose lap would that fall into?
Probably me. But I think what Commissioner Mason raised as this proposal that may be coming to the Law and Justice Council, I think it will be prudent to see how that proposal comes in, how the Law and Justice Council is planning to address this matter. And that may give us an indication as to how this particular group can either supplement some of those activities or maybe find a nexus and synergy between the two councils. Because if we go through this and revise based on what we know right now, you know, you're probably going to be passing an ordinance, and we perhaps miss an opportunity to coordinate with the Law and Justice Council activities, as Commissioner Mesa stated. So I think my suggestion at this point will be, yes, we'll open this ordinance update it, beef it up, put a little more substance to the mission. But at the same time, waiting as to how the Law and Justice Council is gonna bring that proposal as well. Was that something?
Okay. Commissioner Mensah, when does Law and Justice meet again?
July 16th, and I'm going to contact later this week Patrick O'Connor and John Thunheim to give them some of to help set the agenda for that.
Okay. Are they, to use a phrase, are they hot to trot on this to get it going, or do you think it's going to take several months to get done?
I know our prosecutor, John Thunheim, is the one who brought it up at my last meeting with him. I'm 100% supportive, and I think Patrick was as well. So now I'm going to take the next step and request that they put it on the next agenda. We need to move on this issue. So
Yeah.
I can't imagine that it's not going to be well received by the council. Of course, I can't speak for the council, but I'm predicting that it will be very well received.
Oh, very good.
And I am a member of the Law and Justice Council, which I'm planning to attend, so that will give me a good, for me at least, a good bridge as to how we can probably start bringing those two things together.
Good, I like that. Not doing it in silos, but doing it in concert with. Thank you very much. Anything else, Ty?
No.
Good, thank you. So we're moving on. Is there anything else under boards and commissions, Romero? I don't think so.
No.
Oh, okay. PIO check-in.
Good morning, Commissioners, County Manager. Just a few quick updates for you.
Who's talking?
Oh, sorry. This is Brian Dominique, your Public Information Officer,
If he's sitting on this side.
and I'm over on.
Okay. Thank you.
As Ramiro mentioned, we're holding our first in-person board meeting in a few months. So I spent much of last week working with TC Media and Desco to make sure the overflow room would work and getting some signs made to talk about how that system's going to work. Those signs will be posted on the doors, and the overflow room is working, so everything should run pretty smoothly. County offices are going to be closed on Friday, July 3rd in observance of the 4th of July holiday. I'm working on putting some information out about that today via news release and some social media posts. The county's Waste and Recovery Center in Lacey will be open on Friday, July 3rd. However, they will be closing on July 4th, that Saturday, in observance of the holiday. And Megan, our Public Information Supervisor, are working on an internal staff survey to assess how our staff has received information through COVID-19 and in general, how they receive information through things like our Thurston Insider. This was part of our 2019-2020 communications plan, so we're just now getting to it. Some of what we're hoping to learn is readership of our internal staff newsletter, and specifically what they like about the newsletter and ways we can improve it. This could help us make a decision on whether we want to do month to month or every other month for the Commissioner's Corner that you guys submit information to. And finally, Emergency Management is distributing masks out to the public. We put a news release out about that. They're giving them out to different organizations for low-income families and individuals. They're going to be setting up a distribution site on July 9th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Evergreen Christian Community Church. The masks are going to be handed out in the church's parking lot in a drive-through pickup lane type fashion. The address for that is 1000 Black Lake Boulevard Southwest in Olympia. And any questions, that's all I have.
Any questions for Brian or comments? Commissioner Edwards?
Any more thought about writing every other month rather than every month?
Is that for us or for Brian?
It's probably for us.
Yeah, for you, board members.
Yeah. I like the idea of every other month now. Whatever. I was reminded yesterday I've got one due tomorrow.
Yeah, okay, well, thank you.
He was under the gun.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. I'll go along with you on that. I guess if we hear from Commissioner Mensah, we'll know where we're at.
That's okay. Didn't Brian say something about, in your report, something about some feedback loop that's going to help us
the survey?
I didn't quite catch that item.
Yeah, so part of our 2019-2020 communications plan was to do a staff's assessment on how they receive information. So we're getting to that item now. So we're working on the questions and how we're gonna send it out to staff. Some of that is gonna cover topics like the Thurston Insider and what they like about it and how ways we can improve.
So I guess I'd say that unless you get a tremendous cry of support from the staff about it, I'm okay with what my seatmates are proposing there. Go to every other month.
So thank you. My thought is if we went every other month, if you're gonna do that internal survey, that's gonna be vitally important. Give us some feedback as to what the perceptions are, what the need is, rather than just continue doing it until we receive the feedback. It'd be nice to change it up. It'd be January, March, May, June. The next one would be doing July. And then if people, there's an outcry, I didn't hear from my commissioners. That'll be an indicator. But if we don't hear that, then every other month should be fine or sufficient. So, but here's the question I have for you, Brian. If today we were to say, we're going to do it every other month, we're not going to do it in June, we'll do it in July. Does that screw up your formatting for the Insider for this issue? You'd have big complaint.
So the next issue that's going to go out is our July issue. We release the Thurston Insider the first week of every month. That's scheduled for release Monday or Tuesday of next week, since we have a short week this week. So I think we already have the commissioners that are planning on submitting something. I have that space reserved. If we did it in August, that'd be much easier to handle, but I can do whatever the direction of the board is.
Sounds like August.
I'm ready for August myself.
Did we not already submit our pieces for the July issue?
I have yours, Commissioner Menzer.
Okay, I
Commissioner
thought I did
worked on
it.
his, as well as Commissioner Edwards. So, yeah, the July issue, I have that prepared for your submissions to go out, but I could easily work in not having that in August.
Well, I've got mine, mine's a skeletal form right now, it just need to be refined and then in draft form to be reviewed. So I can get it to you by Thursday, that's okay?
That'll work, Commissioner.
Because my day just collapsed today. Tomorrow.
I can furnish an article.
Okay, no plagiarism.
Oh, no, it'll be about current events.
Okay, great, so you'll have that.
Our budget.
Brian, when will that internal survey get out?
I'm not sure yet. I'm meeting with Megan on Thursday and we're gonna talk about it a little bit more in depth, but we're hoping to move forward with it soon.
Okay, wonderful, good discussion. Anything further from Brian?
No, Commissioner, unless you have anything for me.
All right, thank you. That moves us on to legislative updates.
Yes, as a report to the board, Commissioner Hutchins is the chair of the board, myself met with Representative Marcus and Representative McEwen via Zoom yesterday. And we started having a conversation similar to the meeting that we had with Representative Wilcox on some of the items that we would like them to help us during the special session. So some of the items are related to the COVID-19 CRF funding. As you know, the state only issued and distributed $300 million to local jurisdictions. As a result of that, we received $15.7 million, but there is an additional $240 million that OFM is holding back, and that will be one of the items that we will like their help, all the legislators. And this is on the heels also when we met with Senator Hunt, as well as Representative Dolio and Representative Dolan over a month ago. Is the same approach that we're trying to do with all that local representation to help us on this. There's also, as you know, there's a deadline of October 31st related to the expenditures for the CARES money. We also asked them to help us and extend that to December 31st. We also asked for them to consider flexibility on some of the current revenues the counties have particularly related to help us flexibility on the supplanting aspects of this. That really is gonna help us moving forward. And also we discuss other elements in terms of when a special meeting may be called. That seems to be up in the air. Could be August, could be later, all the way, could be until November. I don't think the representatives knew exactly when the special session will be called. Anyways, I'll continue to update you on that, and that's pretty much what I have for you on that item.
And I have a follow-up call to make, and I'll report back to you, Romero, as soon as I make contact.
Yeah, and I believe Commissioner Edwards also.
I made a phone call yesterday in that regard, sir.
Okay. Anything further on the legislative update from Romero or from commissioners? No? Okay. Any briefing or public hearing decisions pending?
Nothing is pending, Commissioners.
All right. So I'm going to round up and call it 10:15. Let's take a 15-minute break and then come back at 10:30. So this meeting is in recess right now. Thank you. of the agenda setting work session for June 30th, 2020. And we're continuing on with commissioner items now. The first one up is hazard pay.
Yes, commissioners, this is the end of the month, and you have been proven hazard pay to the 24/7 sheriff deputies, correction officers, juvenile correction officers, security officers here at the courthouse, as well as some members of the coroner's office. And again, this is June 30th, so I will ask for your direction in terms of the 5% hazard pay. Before you get to that conversation with among yourselves, as we continue to look as to the options that perhaps the county has to get reimbursed by the CARES money, that will be part of the $15.7 million we got allocated. So there seems to be a little bit of concern that perhaps those this hazard pay may not be covered under this scenario. And again, I just want to walk you through as we continue to explore the options, we continue to learn some of the nuances of the CARES money, and we'll continue to learn as to how we can probably request for reimbursement. So let me be clear that we are planning to submit a reimbursement from Commerce. That's not part of the conversation. No, we are planning to submit a reimbursement from Commerce, and most likely Commerce will reimburse the county. The question is whether we can survive an audit down the road. That's really the question. So I'm not, at this point, I'm not putting myself in the position nor robbing anybody else from the staff, saying that we're not going to be submitting a request for reimbursement. That is happening. As soon as we have the opportunity, we will continue to do that. The question is whether we continue to assess whether that is an eligible item that we can be standing an audit. And that's really the key of this conversation. Under the guidance includes workforce bonuses, and this is the guidance from the CARES Act. Includes workforce bonuses as an example of ineligible expenses but provided that hazard pay will be eligible if otherwise determined to be necessary expense if there is a specific definition of hazard pay. Hazard pay, and this is our interpretation, hazard pay means additional pay for performing hazardous duty on work involving physical hardship in each case that is related to COVID-19. And again, we can probably have a conversation, perhaps the normal functions of sheriff deputy may not fit that criteria. The other guidance is may payments from the fund be used to cover across the board hazard pay for employees working during a state of emergency. And our interpretation is no, the guidance says that funding may be used to meet payroll expenses for public safety, public health, healthcare, human services, and similar employees whose services are substantially dedicated to mitigating and responding to the COVID-19 public emergency. And that is some of the nuances that we start seeing on this particular item. Perhaps our uniform officers are not performing work that is substantially dedicated for the mitigation response to COVID-19 public emergency. Nor is their work substantially different than that we are performing prior to the pandemic. And that is the key. Have they done anything different prior to the pandemic versus what they conduct their business under normal circumstances right now? That seems to be a little bit of the concern, at least from the auditing point of view down the road. I just want to bring this to your attention. As you know, as we learned on this, I have the obligation to bring everything that is related to any particular item that you may be considering. Now, from my point of view, I continue to suggest the board to, as I have been in the past, for you to consider stopping this hazard pay. It is an impact on the budget, and you have had many conversations related to the impacts of the budget that we're currently facing. And also, I do believe it creates a little bit of uneven field between A group of individuals, they have a hazard pay, and some others, they're perhaps responding directly to the emergency, such as our nurses, providing testing and everything else. They do not receive the 5% hazard pay. I stop there, and then I will ask for your direction whether I'd like to continue for the next month, for the month of July. And that's what I believe is the direction of the board, that you will consider this on a monthly basis.
A month at a time. Commissioner Edwards, go ahead, sir.
Well, first of all, I'll say I am still in favor of the hazard pay. I disagree with the analysis. Every attorney has a different opinion. If you got 100 attorneys in the room, you got 100 different opinions, if you will. I would refer back to the 5 original questions that we were given early on as this developed. And if you could say yes to those 5 questions or true to those 5 questions, then it was eligible. So unless I need to go into further argument, I'm gonna just let it go at that I disagree with the proposal brought forward by staff, who I don't feel has ever been friendly towards law enforcement anyway. So I am gonna vote to continue the hazard pay.
Commissioner Menzer?
I've been opposing the hazard pay for a set of reasons I'm not going to repeat, but today we heard today there's 2 new reasons to add to my list. One is the audit risks that Ramiro just outlined. And then the second is, yesterday we cut the pay of almost all of county employees, but again, we had to exempt 24/7 operations for a good reason in that case, because of overtime costs and the impact. But if we continue the hazard pay, we're just doubling down on that disparity between the 24/7 operations and our other employees. And there's no need to do it in this instance, especially given the audit risks and all the other things that we've been talking about. So I continue to oppose.
All right, and Ramiro or Robin, the hazard pay thus far to date is like $11,000, $12,000.
No, way more than
No,
that.
it's more than that.
So through the end of June, the county will have spent $205,000
Well, it's
for
111.
hazard pay.
11 is what I'm thinking. Okay. All right. So with that, I would say
Can you give me the?
certainly.
I'd just like to address Commissioner Edwards' comments. Me bringing this matter to the board's attention is from the administrative point of view. By no means I comment across that I dislike or don't dislike any particular office, or that I'm not friendly with the sheriff's office. By no means. I'm not in the position to play any favoritisms. I'm not in the position to like or dislike any offices. My main mission is to provide administrative functions to the county as a whole.
To that,
Well,
okay, and to that I will say, this is about business. It's not about people. It's not about departments or work assignments and such. This is just the business. And I understand that, Ramiro and Robin. Thank you for that. We need that information, and I value your information that you provide. We in the beginning authorized, the majority of the board authorized hazard pay because of the inherent danger or exposure to the COVID virus, even in its infant stages, and the inability on many occasions for deputies and corrections to avoid or protect themselves from the virus. And so that's why that was my ideology, is why I voted for the hazard pay. And now looking at and the fact that there's people, a segment of society that don't care for them, and they're exposed to further dangers of rocks, bricks, whatever. That has nothing to do with that. This is regarding COVID related hazard pay. We all signed up. When we signed up to join law enforcement, we all know what comes with the beast, and we accept that as a viable risk. And so after 35 years of risk taking, I'm not concerned about an audit. I'll face that risk when it gets here. And but with the onslaught of a surge, this isn't the sky is falling, but the onslaught of the surge that's hitting Florida, Texas, Arizona, and states reverting back to phase 2 and closing businesses down again. I'm really concerned about the surge. I'm also concerned about the lowering of the age level of people being infected now from a 1-year-old to teens to early 20s and 30s, not just old people anymore. It's impacting a greater segment of our society, which in my mind exposes the men and women in law enforcement to increased dangers as well. It's not just danger to that individual, but if they're exposed to it, they take it home to a spouse, significant other, to children and such. So I am in favor of continuing the hazard pay for this month, and we'll reassess where we are at the end of July then. Any further discussion on that topic, or are we moving on?
No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 2, the Thurston County Chamber proposal to restart the economy.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. Attached to your packet is the letter that you received back in May 27, 2020, related to the Chamber's as to how, on opportunities as to how we can revitalize the recovery. When I brought this matter to your attention, you directed staff to get in touch with the stakeholders, and in fact, I'd like to give you just an update as to what has occurred. Follow-up to that conversation, on June 15, 2020, Public Works, CPED, and the Economic Development Manager met with Thurston County Chamber leaders, Doug Mall, Kelly Rogers, and Aaron Hall to discuss this particular letter and see how they can move ahead on those 3 bulleted items they have presented to you. So one is the deferred temporary modify the time in which the payments for the impact fee should be implemented. That was item number 1. They met and discussed that, and the outcome to that is this included in your packet, by the way. CPED, Paul Rogerson, the prosecuting attorney's office will be working together with the chambers to find a path forward, and some items will be bring to the board's attention to take in a particular action in the upcoming weeks. The next item was enable additive fees for after-hours reviews or expedited review. The group decided the best way to, the first step will be to make sure the CPED is fully staffed to provide the services, and then they will assess what will be the next steps, whether after-hour payment will be needed. And then a third-party review or the outsourcing of work to adjust staff furloughs. At this point, again, you're having full staff. I think we'll have to see what the reduction of hours between from 40 to 36 hours will have an impact. And this could be an option that we need to continue to assess. And again, it has been an open communication with the partners who submitted that letter. And Josh Cummins and Jenica Machado are part of the Zoom meeting here, and they can elaborate on these interactions and answer any questions the board may have.
Any questions of Jenica or of Josh? Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
I guess as this discussion went on, I know this was only talking about one issue of the impact fees and when those should be paid. I would propose that if we're going to give this economic engine a kickstart, that we also do the same thing with at least 1/2 of all fees that we collect. So the citizen doesn't pay in that big chunk of money until he receives the occupancy permit. And I believe that'll give us an incentive to get something done. And I will point out that full staffing would be nice, but there's no guarantee that we're ever going to have full staffing. And what is full staffing? We probably will never attain that either. So that's why I would like to put a reduction of fees paid up front and have them paid at the conclusion of the process, all the fees along with the impact fees.
Commissioner Menzer, anything?
I thought this came up like a few months ago, and I think that I remember we had some follow-up questions about it, and we kind of needed to know the magnitude of the amount of fees. So if we delayed half the fees or 90% of fees or whatever, and I don't have those numbers handy because I didn't know this was going to come up. Somewhere I wrote them down, but I remember, maybe Josh remembers, but we probably tasked him with doing that. But I'd like to, if we're going to reconsider Commissioner Edwards' idea, I'd like to go back and remind ourselves of that financial impact, because there was a question about what the county could absorb by delaying. And the other thing was, the problem I see with that system is that when somebody doesn't get the result they want from a process, then their incentive to pay any of the rest of the fees, whether it's 90% or 50%, drops through the floor. And I think there was some discussion that a system like that just wouldn't be tenable.
So Josh, I apologize for not asking you up front before I went to the commissioners if you had any follow-up or information to provide subsequent to Ramiro Chavez's framing.
No. Well, so the county manager did a great job of framing the topic at hand. The letter that we received from the Thurston Chamber, we responded quickly, as is our path of service, and met with the folks that provided the letter. It was relayed to us very clearly by those that joined that there are multiple groups within our community that are working for economic recovery. They stated the Economic Recovery Task Force, Thurston Strong, and then this letter came from the Thurston Chamber Economic Development Subcommittee. And so you'll recall potentially that we had been working with Thurston Strong and trying to find ways to create economic recovery. And this board, you guys quickly enacted the extension of the permit application expiration to the end of September. And this new letter that we got from Thurston Chamber from a different group was providing some new thoughts. And so we wanted to hear those thoughts. And the one that really popped to the top was the deferral of impact fees. And as the county manager stated, we are in the process of trying to enact that and bring something to the board for your review and potential approval. And in terms of the other two items, it was agreed that working towards some level of full staffing would be the first best step. Having the humans available to do the job that they're supposed to do in terms of permanent planning is appropriate. We are currently a quarter down in terms of our permit and plan review. We've just gone through the topic that this board agreed upon on the buyback of multiple vacant positions. And so we'll begin that process soon. But we have 5 positions down that we do need to fill that will help ignite the economic recovery and continue to decrease that permit and plan review time. So those second 2 bullet items, the folks on the call agreed that would be the best path forward. And so we're doing it. We're doing all 3.
And that is a good clarification, and as I believe the full staffing, it was just filling the vacant positions, not necessarily adding new positions. It's just filling what we have currently vacant.
That's correct.
Did you have anything to add?
No, I think Ramiro and Josh covered that well. The Thurston Strong continue to keep focused on strategies for economic recovery.
Thank you. And I like that they're engaging you folks, engaging the county. Very good. Commissioner Edwards, you had your hand up.
No, I'd just like to make sure that we're always reviewing what we can do better for the citizens. And that's kind of where I'm coming from here, that I think we ought to always look what is the best for the citizen that's taken their wallet out to make these payments. And that's why I'm suggesting this. I believe if nothing else, there'll be a slight delay, kind of like an accrual of what we do on budget. We don't get the report for, some months or something like that, but that money is going to continue to come in, and they won't get the occupancy permit until they pay it off. So it'll give our folks incentive to get it done quickly is what I'm looking for, rather than a punitive position against the applicant.
Commissioner Menser, any thoughts?
No,
Okay.
I think, I'm happy with this update, and I'm satisfied with the efforts of Jenica and Josh to respond to the letter. And if there's any developments, I'd appreciate if they brought it back to the board.
Let us know what we can do regarding implementing these three items. I think they're great. They're great ideas, and the sooner the better.
Thank you.
Okay, it's a policy decision, isn't it? I mean, we don't have to change an ordinance. Let's just tell them to do it.
What's the next step then? Let me go to Romero. What's the next step in?
I think if you want to do that, I believe you need to codify it, so which takes legislative action.
All right, let's do it then. Robin.
Hold on, what are we codifying?
Josh, you wanna pipe in?
I think the assistant county manager had her hand up.
Oh,
He did. Go ahead, Robin.
I was going to ask if the outsourcing needs to be bargained with the union.
I was going to ask what decision we're discussing.
I'm looking at the June 29th, and those are the proposals for assisting to restart the economy, the deferral of temporary modifying of time, enabling additive fees, after our reviews, third-party review, outsourcing.
So as we just relayed, all three of those are under consideration. The first one, the deferral of impact fees, we're working with the prosecuting attorney's office to put together a package for your review and potential approval. The second two items, the first step is to fill the vacant positions so that there are humans to do the job. And then once we see what the timelines look like, to potentially explore those other two next steps. And that was also agreed upon by the Thurston Chamber folks that wrote the letter and were on the call.
Okay, and so to Robin's point, then if there's outsourcing issues regarding represented employees, that needs to be addressed as well. Right. That's what I was talking about. I just don't want this to, it's a nice update and let it sit for another month or 2 months. I just want to get moving on this day. So it has meaning and purpose to the community.
And so the folks that wrote the letter agreed that we're doing it. And we're in the middle of it.
Were your question answered?
I have another question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I still feel that we need to get away from this bureaucracy that ties us down. And in this case, I don't think the fees and such are all codified. I think those are administrative decisions that are made that we might make changes to, and I'd make those changes today if it was up to me, because I'm quite sick and tired of the bureaucratic delay that is always at the benefit of the government, but never at the benefit of the citizen out there struggling to make our economy work. So I can't emphasize enough, let's not wait until next year to do this. Let's get it done. Let's do what needs to be done, and let's do it damn fast.
I don't like to be rushed.
Yeah, well, I like to be rushed on this deal.
On this deal, that's referring to yesterday's conversation. So that's a different topic for a different time at this point, but it's in your head. You've heard it before, Josh, regarding that, and or Romero or Robin. What would the impacts be of fees? Are they codified? Are they just administrative? All that data. But we don't have time to go into a staff report right now on that topic. But anything further on this topic of the chamber proposal?
No, from my
Nope.
end.
All right, good. Thank you very much.
I just wanted to maybe do a quick, all of those staff members that are listening right now, really appreciate your good work in serving the citizens of Thurston County.
Thank you, Josh.
I'll
very
ditto
important.
that. Ditto that. Thank you. Now we're moving into the HCP. And so stick around, everybody, because I have on my calendar this morning, HCP submittal. Today's June 30th. What's the status of the HCP being submitted to U.S. Fish and Wildlife? And now Josh is back. They're still here, but now we're welcoming Jennifer Davis as well. So do you want to start, Romero, or are we going right to Josh?
Yeah,
Or Jen?
let me just frame, and I don't want to steal the thunder from the great work the staff has done, particularly Jennifer Davis. Back in April, when the board decided to start coordinating an additional draft of the HCP, there was a lot of items that needed to be addressed. Commissioner Hutchins met with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife staff as well as CPED staff and outlined what, in his own word, an audacious, deadline of June 30th to come up with somewhat of a final draft. Where staff took that as not as an obstacle, perhaps as a great opportunity to work together with U.S. Fish and Wildlife, which they have done so. So at this point, without stealing the thunder, I will probably either give the floor to Josh or Jennifer to give you a more detailed status as to where we are.
Thank you for that. And I will just start by, preface by saying, when we first submitted our first draft years ago, it came back from Fish and Wildlife with some suggestions. We've addressed those, went back to Fish, came back to us again with issues. We addressed those, and it came back again. And it was as if we were stuck in a roundabout with no exit route. And we were just chasing the tail. And it drove me nuts. I know it drove many of us nuts. Here's the draft. Tell us of all the issues that you have. Let's get them sorted out and quit playing ping pong and move this thing down the road, because it's frustrating and very disconcerting to, and that's a nice word, to our community, to our citizens and businesses when it comes to habitat and the gopher and other species. So here's where we are now on June 30th, when I threw down that the gauntlet and said, let's get it done. Let's get the final draft in and get it to the Fish, so the Fish can move on to the solicitor and we can get on with business, the NEPA and the SEPA. So now where are we going, Jennifer, or are we going to Josh?
So thank you, Commissioner. I'll jump in real quick. And I think that your point is well taken. We were on a bit of a carousel during the first and second draft, and this board of county commissioners put us on a path when we submitted the third draft of the HCP to be in partnership with U.S. Fish on a more linear path. And I would like to provide my recognition and thanks to Jennifer Davis and her team on the next step on that linear path and getting us off the carousel. And so, Jennifer, please take it away.
Sure, thank you again. And I want to thank particularly Chris Chapeau, our consultant, the team at U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Curtis Tanner and Brad Thompson. We worked really hard these past few months trying to meet this bold and audacious goal of June 30th. We're off the roundabout. The ping pong has ended. We were able to find a solution to all of the technical issues that were provided from the review of our draft 3. So what's happening now is that our consultant is finalizing the edits. This is a document that's going to be going through an environmental review process. So first we're having a technical editor cross the T's and dot the I's. And I'll be scheduling a briefing to bring the final printed document to the board by the end of July, so that we can get your thumbs up for resubmittal formally to U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Once we do that, it's not the end, as you well know. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Solicitor will review it. There will be a formal acceptance by the HCP, and then we will move into the environmental review, the NEPA, National Environmental Policy Act review process. And staff is right now creating a robust public outreach process and plan to go along with this next coming phase, so that our community really can understand what the HCP means to them, how it will work, economic impacts, and how they can get involved.
Wow, we're almost there now. We're almost there.
Yes.
And there's our SEPA as well, and the NEPA and SEPA will be concurrent.
That's right. They're going to run concurrently. So NEPA will be basically the leading process, and that's going to be run out of U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and we'll be ensuring along the way that we're meeting the particular SEPA noticing and public outreach as well, but they will run concurrently.
And that takes about a year.
It will take about a year once it is launched.
Ah, okay. And it doesn't start until it's accepted by the feds.
Correct.
So we're still some time away from that, a couple months.
Potentially, once we have the formal resubmittal, it's in their hands to decide if they accept, and then we can move into that next phase. So I can't really predict at this point since it's not something under the county's control.
Not our control, got it, okay. I'm thrilled that we're to this point, I really am. And it's taken us quite some time to get there. And again, Josh and Jennifer, your staff, and Chris, and they are just amazing at the dedication and the time they put in. Any questions or comments from commissioners? Commissioner Edwards?
I guess I would like to echo your compliments to staff as far as all the work that they put into this. But I would also like to caution our public out there that now this moves on to an unbelievably bureaucratically slow part of government that really doesn't really care about if you get to build a house or not. And that's unfortunate, but it's reality. And Jennifer kind of laid out what that time frame is. I think it's completely unnecessary, but I would guess we shouldn't look for a solution for this for at least a year now, because it goes over to U.S. Fish and Wildlife and goes through their nightmare bureaucratic process. So thank you to staff, and I would hope the U.S. Fish and Wildlife folks would try to serve the public as good as our staff does.
It's like a fish hook, you know, it's easy, the fish hook going in, but pulling it out is where you do the damage. And now we're submitting that, and now it's out of our control, as Jennifer said, completely, and we're at the whim of the system. But I tell you what, we are so further ahead now than we were in 2017. And so I compliment you on that. Thank you. It's nice to be at this end of it. Commissioner Mance, or anything, sir?
No, thanks.
Okay. Okay, then Josh, go ahead, please.
So I just have one more quick comment, and it's appreciation to the Board of County Commissioners. We're able to go on a linear path, as Jennifer has been implementing with partnership with U.S. Fish, because we received clear direction from this board, and appreciate that. And so as we implement these next phases, the concerns that Commissioner Edwards has on the federal process is clearly heard. And it can be difficult to understand that the county staff and the county team is working on behalf of our citizens, trying to receive a permit for our citizens to do with their land what they want within code and ordinance. But we're having the opportunity to work with the federal government on this process. So keeping in mind that the county is working on behalf of our citizens in this process is really important. And thank you for the clear direction from this board.
You're welcome. Thank you for that. And Jennifer, I owe you for this too. Thank you. That's it. Then we're going to move on to the next topic. Thank you for joining us. And that's the Salary Commission.
Yeah, commissioners, you had a couple of executive sessions early in the year where you had the opportunity to listen from your attorneys, the history as to how the Salary Commission came to be, some of the different options plus board members have taken in terms of adjusting the salaries of elected officials and yourselves. So the reason for this item to be brought to your attention is the Salary Commission will start convening their meetings here in July. They will start exploring salary revisions to all the elected officials, including yourselves, for the 2021 budget. I have a recommendation for you to consider, considering the budget adjustments and considering the budget issues that we have, and listening some of your concerns. My recommendation for you is for you to draft a letter. Obviously, I will draft a letter for your signature to send to the Salary Commission, urging them not to take an action in any of the salaries of elected officials for this upcoming cycle. That is the request that I have for you, and pretty to the point. And let me go how you would like to move forward with this particular proposal.
So when I see this Salary Commission 2020 letter discussion, you're talking about the letter that we would put out, not a letter that's been received from the Salary Commission.
No, it's a letter for you to consider signing urging the salary commission not to take action.
Okay, I'm okay with that. I was looking for the letter in my packet, didn't see it. Okay, so let's, and I'm okay with that. Let's begin with discussion. Any hands being raised? Discussion? Commissioner Edwards.
And I take it that letter would be a prelude to something else that we're going to do, possibly, maybe disbanding or making adjustments or something. Is that what's going to happen next, or we're going to talk about that?
When the board received, and again, an executive session, the history, I believe at that point, the board did not want to pursue any particular actions related to the salary commission. And so at this point, I am not tracking any particular direction, whether you like to change the model of the salary commission.
Okay.
But disbanding the salary commission, as you may recall, you need to take other actions as to how you're going to be supplementing their role. And again, that was part of your executive session early in the year. And as a result of that, I didn't get any direction that you'd like to change the model of the salary commission.
I guess I would ask then, after our executive session talking about that, did we give direction through a, I don't know, thumbs up, thumbs down vote of this board that we did or did not want to possibly disband, I'll just say disband, or adjust how they do business?
No, it was not direction given.
No direction given. Well then, at this point, I would say let's look at disbanding the salary commission. And I'm gonna go back to what I've been saying for the last, I don't know, 25 years, I guess, of commenting about how salaries with elected officials are put in place. And I think there should never be an adjustment to a salary to an incumbent that is in office until that person runs for office again or a re-election. I just don't think it makes sense that we should be in a position where we're raising our own salary. I think we can go ahead and adjust salaries, but only when there's a new election for the next cycle. So that's been my standard for many years. I know I have not been successful on getting that implemented, but I still feel it's the right way, the right thing to do for the taxpayers. So.
Okay, Commissioner Massey?
Discussion.
Yeah, so this is very unscientific, but I have a very complicated system of paper on my desk. And if something is discussed but really hasn't been resolved and I feel like there's more to come, I put it in a particular pile. And the salary commission information was in that pile. So I had assumed that we had sort of had a meeting and we're going to sort of chew on some of the proposals that we talked about. I didn't really feel like the issue was laid to rest, but I also can't exactly remember where we landed or what the discussion was, because there were a lot of nuances. Disbanding the salary commission, I think, is going to put more responsibility on the county commissioners. And I was actually looking for a system that did the exact opposite. I want to be as far away from setting people's salaries as possible, as long as we have a system that's fair and kind of even-handed and can take into account, changes in the economy and cost of living, et cetera. Other counties have systems where it's tied to a factor of the state salary commission, which has more resources and bandwidth to do the research on this stuff. We've had trouble even filling our local Thurston County Salary Commission. So I'm very open-minded about a change. I don't know if it's going to be the same change that Commissioner Edwards wants. I have no problem with his concept of the, not changing within a term. But I just have to figure out how that fits within the choices that we had. Because my recollection of the discussion was that every change of system had some extremely unpleasant nuance or wrinkle to it that we hadn't thought about. So I think we're gonna have to go back and kind of revisit that discussion is my sense of it.
My sense is the same, a revisit to get more refreshed information. Because this is my 4th year in office and I have never set my own salary. And it has felt awkward. But we approve the salary recommendations for all of the electeds except for the county commissioners. And by disbanding, as I recall, by disbanding the salary commission, it's incumbent upon the Board of County Commissioners to establish the salary for the electeds and or ourselves. I don't know if that's factual or not. I need to get refreshed legal information. But then that does put a burden on our staff to find out what's the cost of living, what are the comparables doing, what are all the, for all the elected officials, what would be fair and equitable, what's the comps, the comparables. It burdens our staff, and then we ultimately, I think, make the decision. And so I'm not comfortable with that either. So I'm very open to discussing it further, getting fresh, up-to-date information and giving direction from there. But at this point, we're talking about a letter going to the salary commission saying, leave it alone. I'm okay with that. I'm very much okay with that. Under this topic right now, sending a letter to the salary commission, spelling that out. I'm very much okay with that. Commissioner Edwards, you were waving your hand. There you go.
I guess I too am okay with that, but I would like that letter to include the fact that the reason we're asking them not to do anything right now is because we will be holding a future briefing to the Board of County Commissioners as to what the solution is. And just on the face of it, I'd like to see something like really simple, like, okay, when we disband the salary commission, we say all salaries of elected officials that we affect, because we don't affect all those salaries. Some of the Superior Court judges, for example, we don't. But I think if we said something as simple as the salary is X, whatever it is, and each year, depending on the CPI or cost of living, whatever it might be, we could come up with some formula. It would fall whichever is the lowest, whichever is the highest of that particular area, so that we would never be jumping out and doing these raises, if you will, that the public takes exception to. Because I do want to hold ourselves accountable to the public. They're the ones that are watching us closely, and I don't mind that. I think if we locked something in, it'd be a pretty simple fix in my estimation.
All right, but I don't think, in my opinion, I don't think that belongs in this letter.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that, but at least put a freeze on.
County manager.
So the purpose of my proposal for you to consider this letter is purely related to the budget. And it's related absolutely to the budget. And for the salary commission, for them to consider not to take an action in any revisions of any other elected officials, including yourselves, salaries. That is the purpose of my suggestion to you today.
So has this been put out even in backroom chatter? Is there any elected official that knows about this and has argued for or against it? Or do we know?
No, I am not in the position to go for a survey on the elected officials, whether they'd like to be adjusted a salary or not.
Okay.
No.
Well, I'm okay with the letter going out.
So if I may address you as a Board of County Commissioners have extreme latitude on how you adjust or not adjust salaries of other elected officials. Whether the move is to eliminate the salary commission, you can, lay out a plan as Commissioner Edwards has stated. But the pinch point on all the discussions that you may recall is your salary. The salary of the Board of County Commissioners continue to be a pinch point by state law and the Constitution. So on the variances that you may consider, dissolving the salary commission and everything else, again, you have a lot of latitude, I believe, to set, the salaries of all the elected officials on the way you think is fair, prudent, whatever you like to do. But again, I think the difficulty in that conversation, as you may recall, is your own salaries. And that will continue to be an issue as you continue. So what I'm hearing is, and I will confirm, that you will direct me to draft a letter and to this for your consideration to sign it, urging Salary Commission not to take an action for the 2021 salary revisions. And also what I'm hearing is you like me to come back and give you a refresher of the briefing that we give you early in the year related to the options the board has related to the Salary Commission and other options. Is that what I got?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
yes.
Ramiro, can you include in that the KITSAP system is the one I keep hearing touted as a good way. So can we specifically hear the details of how they do their salaries?
Yeah, we'll do.
And just going back to yesterday afternoon's budget conversation and tying it in with this conversation on salaries, I'm not the least bit interested in balancing our budget shortfalls on the backs of the employees alone. I want to be part of that solution. And I'll talk with the county manager about how to address this with the electeds to see if they will, if and how many will join in reducing hours by 4 hours and giving that back to the county or whatever we do with that. But I don't want to do it just on the backs of the employees. That just doesn't sit well with me. Commissioner Edwards?
I guess just to follow up on that statement, because I don't think people will understand what a cutback of 4 hours is. What we did to the public or to the county employees is they ended up with a 10% pay cut. And so if we're gonna do something like that, that's what I would advocate for ourselves, is a 10% pay cut as well.
Yep. Anything further?
No, sir.
Okay. You have what you need, Ramiro?
Yes, sir. So again, I have 2 items that I will follow up.
Okay, thank you. Next is number 5, and that is County Parks Phase 3 plan. It's information.
Thank you, Commissioner. This is just a memo that I received from Director of Public Works, Jennifer Walker, outlining some of the plan that they are implementing in all the county parks related to Phase 3 opening. It's very prescriptive. I believe Jennifer Walker and Carrie Hipton are joining us today. I don't want to steal their thunder, so I will ask them to join us and walk the board through some of the key elements of this plan.
Hi, Commissioners. Jennifer Walker, Public Works Director. I'm just going to kind of set the stage and just also want to express my appreciation to Carrie Hibden, the Parks Manager, and his staff who have been working throughout this time to keep our facilities ready and prepping them for opening. And so Carrie worked quite closely with the other agencies, City of Lacey, Tumwater, and Olympia, to have more of a coordinated approach. And while we may not have an exact same approach, it is coordinated, and specifically with respect to signage, so that our public, when they go from one park to another, there's some consistent messaging. And so with that, Carrie, if you want to just outline how we're operating during Phase 3.
You bet. Carrie Hibden, Parks and Trails Manager with Thurston County Public Works. And a little refresher as to where we are today is all of our developed parks and trails are open for public use. All of our parking lots are open. Restrooms are open and they're being cleaned twice a day. So what's new for Phase 3 is that we're now allowing for outdoor gatherings of up to 50 people with proper physical distancing. The Kennedale Lodge, which is an indoor facility, is reservable again at 50% of its capacity, so that's for groups of 25 or less. The other picnic shelters at Burfoot, Kennedale, Fry Cove are open for reservations for groups of 50 or less per the state guidelines. The swimming area at Kennydale Park is open, 50 people or less, again, distancing required. We also open playgrounds in phase 3. And this is, again, a developed or a coordinated approach with developed signage that we created with guidance from Thurston County Health. Volunteer work parties are now being reviewed for folks to come out who want to help contribute to their parks and trails system. Again, we would be held under the 50-person guidelines with distancing requirements. Trail events. So when people reserve our trails for their functions, fun runs, and so forth, our big ones have already been canceled by the organizers, and that's the Seattle to Portland bicycle event. They've chosen to not hold that for the year. Other trail events we're taking on a case-by-case basis, and that really depends on what the proposed activity is. Can they distance? Can we hold that in concert with the public still using the facilities as well? So we're doing well. There's some challenges out there, but our parks and trails are open to the public. We have some really dedicated staff out there in the field who are really doing an outstanding job of cleaning restrooms twice a day, really putting a very notable effort forward. And I think we should all be appreciative of that. But other than that, we are up and we are running with these challenges, and people are enjoying their parks and trails.
Carrie, you are a shooting star, man. Thank you so much for all you're doing, and great work down in Tenino, by the way, a week or so ago, a couple weeks ago.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Edwards.
Yes, I'd like to echo that compliment as well, but I would hope that always be thinking about what you can bill against the CARES Act, anything that you're doing different, possibly even, I don't know, part-time positions or something that we would not normally have in place for sanitary issues, for an example. We could bill that against the CARES Act as well. So I'm hoping that everybody's being innovative and besides doing a good job. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner, for that. And we are billing towards that CARE Act, and anything that is being done in direct response to the COVID-19 response in terms of extra restroom cleaning and all of the extra sanitary measures, we are billing towards that.
Thank you.
Good job.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or questions? No. Good information. Jennifer, anything else?
No, sir. Thank you.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you. That was nice. That was pleasant.
Good job. Good job.
All right. Takes us to number 6, public health emergency request.
Yeah, and I believe Shelley's online. So let me frame this for your conversation today. And again, I'm not expecting you to make a decision today, just to begin the conversation perhaps. You receive, I think, individual emails from Ms. Megan Sullivan. She is the Executive Director of the Together organization. And in this email to each one of you, she was urging for you to consider declaring racism as a public health crisis. On your email, I'm not going to read that. All of you received that email, and includes perhaps the Thurston County Public Health and Social Services at the Board of Health to consider taking this action. Perhaps other counties in the region has already taken some of those actions, in particular listing King County and Pierce County as to those counties who have taken passing that resolution declaring racism as a public health crisis. So that's the frame of that. Now, in terms of creating a resolution, a crisis, an emergency, as you have exercised your legislative action in the past, whether it's homelessness or the opioid crisis, there are specific actionable items that you will consider on a resolution of this type, because absent some of the actionable items, it becomes only a good soundbite, and those are my words, not anybody else's. So I did have the opportunity to see what the King County as well as Pierce County had done, and a copy of those resolutions are included in your packet. For the benefit of the public, I'm just gonna read out loud the legislative action of each of those counties. One is King County. Again, I'm not gonna be reading the whereas, that's the history. I'm just gonna be reading the resolution, what the King County Council has resolved. And it states that now therefore be it resolved, the Board of Health of King County does A, the board declares racism as a public crisis. B, the board supports King County Public Health, Seattle and King County immediately in the work to advance a public health approach in addressing institutional and systemic racism. C, the board commits to assessing, revising, and writing its guidance documents and its policies with a racial justice and equity lens, including the Board of Health Code and manual work plan. And last, D, the board members commit to ongoing work around race and equity, such as participating in racial equity training, engaging in being responsible to communities and residents impacted by racism, especially Black and Indigenous communities, as partners in identifying and implementing solutions, establishing an agreed upon understanding of. So of racial equity principles to work towards anti-racism policies, practices to serve as ambassadors of racial equity. That is the legislative actions by King County. The legislative action by via resolution in Pierce County, it takes a little bit different approach in a way. So they included 10 sections as part of the legislative approach. So I'm gonna read the body of that resolution because each of those sections just changes on the different offices. So for instance, section number 1 says, Pierce County Council directs the executive to provide thoughtful and thorough review of the Sheriff Department's current policies, safety, system policies, and procedures, and review the best practices employed in the discharge of their duties in the service of the citizens of Pierce County. So that language applies to all the many different sections, and what it changes on the different departments. For instance, section 4 states the same: Pierce County Council directs the executive to provide a thoughtful and thorough review of the current policies, procedures, and best practices of the medical examiner in this case, and the representation and discharge of their duties in the services of the citizens of Pierce County. So it's the same language on the, I believe, on the 7 sections. It just changes the different offices and departments. Now on section 8, which is included in yours, and again, section 2 relates to corrections, section 3 relates to assigned counsel, section 4 is the state medical examiner, section 5 is the economic development department, section 6 is the judicial branch, section 7 is the office of prosecuting attorney. And the section 8 asks this reviews represented by the executive to the Pierce County Council, their Standing Committee of Public Safety, no later than September 1st, 2020. And goes on in saying, following receipt of the department's review, the County Council will develop an action plan to prevent and reduce inequity, inequality, and injustice. And the action plan will commit to the formulation of implementation of public policies and procedures, distribution of public service, and management of institutions serving the public directly or by contract to ensure fairness, justice, equality, and equity. And lastly, the clerk of the county council shall provide a copy of this resolution. This is just the last part of it. So Anyways, I just want to bring this to your attention. And again, I'm not, at least from the staff point of view, obviously the board can take any direction you want to take. It's not an expectation for you to say, yes, let's find a resolution. I think it requires a little more thought behind this. And if you like, maybe you can direct the staff to explore again further as to something like this, the Board of Health may consider down the road. That is the framing of this item for you.
Thank you for that. And it's public health crisis is the topic, and this says public health emergency. And if everything's an emergency and everything's a crisis, then nothing seems to be. I am not opposed to this in any way, shape, or form. By virtue of the fact we're breathing life back into the Thurston Council on Cultural Diversity and Human Rights. We've already discussed that. And it wouldn't take much to add injustice or inequality to that ordinance. So with that, I just hate to fill the airwaves with more stuff that feels good. We're actually doing stuff. We're doing something that's meaningful right now. But that's just me, and this is a discussion. So I turn to Ty and Gary. Any comments or questions? Any hands going up?
I guess I'd just say if we're gonna add a couple things like you suggested, why couldn't we talk about bias and discrimination and prejudice? Because I think those probably are the underlying issues that go along with that. So I think we should have a future time that we're going to actually spend and kick this around a little bit and see what we could come up with.
Commissioner Menzer.
So I hadn't seen the Pearson King text until this morning. When I read Ms. Sullivan's email, now that I see what's in there, I support strongly every single piece of what they're doing. I guess my question, this kind of connects to Commissioner Hutchings' point, is does it need to be in the? I'd rather just direct that we do the things that are in the action items. I don't know that I question whether we need an emergency declaration, because this Board of Health, the Board of Health has done an emergency declaration on opioids, which we have a task force and a plan. We have homelessness, which we're constantly, we hired a coordinator and we're constantly trying to up our game and our response there. And now we've got a health pandemic directly. So adding another emergency onto the pile, it starts to dilute the impact of the meaning of that word. So I guess that's my concern about that. But I'm open to it because the actual action items are things that I'd like to see done. So whether it has to be in the form of an emergency declaration or some other form, I'd like to try to advance that kind of review of what we're doing. And then in the King County one, it talked about it's basically the same. Well, there's racial equity training, which I've talked about, and I think the board agreed to pursue. So we're going to do that, and then it seems like the foundation of the rest of it is kind of a thorough review of policy and creating an action plan. And to me, that doesn't smack of an emergency. That just seems like good. That seems like good bureaucratic, at risk of using that word that Commissioner Edwards doesn't like. It seems like good bureaucratic practice. We shouldn't even need an emergency to do something like that. And in light of recent events, we should just advance those types of reviews.
And I agree with that, because it's also melding perhaps with what Law and Justice Council is going to be taking up as well. I would imagine. I foresee it. Gary?
I guess I would ask, are we aware of any particular issues like in our workforce, or, we've got a pretty diverse group if you really look at everything, and it's not all about racism. That's why, what about our gay employees, or what about some people with long hair, or different colored hair? I don't know. There's other biases and prejudices that come into play that make the workplace could make the workplace unpleasant. I'm just wondering, are we aware of anything, and maybe Maria would be the better one to ask, have we got a particular problem? I know we want to address kind of current events, if you will, and make sure that we're kind of on top of that. But do we have any glaring examples that we could point to that by taking this action or that action, it's going to fix this or that? I haven't heard anything, and I wonder if maybe my seatmates have, or the county manager, I don't know. Just curious.
Well, just about 5-6 weeks ago, we all had long hair.
Yeah. I used to have hair some time back. I'm jealous of all now.
Shelley, and I'm going to turn to Shelley, the Director of Public Health and Social Services. Do you have anything to add to the conversation, Shelley?
Yes, sir. Just to respond to Commissioner Edwards' question, this is an issue that is of great concern to us at Thurston County Public Health and Social Services. And we have an abundance of data on the health disparities in our community. In particular, the health disparities that impact our Black, African American, and Indigenous communities, and would be happy to present more of that information to the board for further conversation. We'd be very interested in developing and sharing what actions we have already taken and plan to take in public health.
So you have that information from our community, relative to our community. Do we have that information internal to the government, to Thurston County government, to our employees?
I think that question would be most appropriately directed to
Maria.
Human Services, or to our, to Maria Aponte.
Okay.
Human Resources.
Okay. That would be a good briefing. That'd be a really good briefing to have. Did you have your hand back up, Gary, or no?
No, I think we've covered that topic, basically, that if we've got any glaring examples, first of all, I'd surely like to hear them. So, because then I wouldn't be so inclined to take that bureaucratic weight, if you will, if we had glaring examples. But shy of that, then I think it does take thoughtful discussion with all parties to put together something that's meaningful.
I mean, just the one that I'm aware of, because I sit on a lot of law and justice related committees, and some of the incarceration statistics by race do a poll. I mean, we obviously have lower numbers than in other parts of the country, but we do have some of the same disparities in Thurston County. I think African American, for example, 4% of our population and 13% of our incarcerated population. And there can be a lot of reasons for that. You know, I think everybody acknowledges that there's a whole bunch of factors that go into that, but it's something that I know that our prosecutors talked about, and I think that's generating his proposal that I mentioned earlier in the meeting about a race and equity subcommittee in our Law and Justice Council, and I've already asked for that to be added to the July 16th agenda, just to look at that and analyze it and what can be done. What are we not doing that would make a difference?
All right, go ahead, Gary, and we'll wrap it up.
I guess just following up on that, I would also like to know if we've got any examples. We talk about different numbers and percentages and such, but I would like to know, and we could leave the names out if we were worried about hurting somebody's feelings or something, but I'd like to know if we've got any examples at hand where people were treated differently. I mean, I like to think that we need to do things like the golden rule. Just why can't we treat people the way we'd like to be treated? But I guess that's too simplistic. But I'd sure like to know if there's anything where we could actually point to a case that, and using race as an example, that this person, because they're Black or Hispanic, and they were treated thusly, and this person, maybe that's white, we talk about white privilege, maybe, they got a free pass or something. So I would like to have some real comparisons, because I'm not saying that type of thing does not exist. I just don't think it exists here. I'm not saying it doesn't, because you can never say never, I guess. You get in trouble if you say that. But I think our whole system is pretty darn aware of treating people fairly. And that comes when we end up in court. I don't know any of our judges that treat people differently because of this or that. I think it's equal justice for all. And but I'd sure like to know if there are some examples. So I'd just tell Shelley to, look around before we get that briefing. If you've got a glaring example that you could give us that, if two people commit an armed robbery and one's black and one's white, I would hope they get the same sentence, depending on any mitigation or anything, same crime. So, and past history, of course. But anyway.
So thank you. I like the golden rule, and we're talking about human rights and injustice, inequality, bias, stigmatism, or not stigmatism. I have that stigma, and that applies even to the homeless as well, when there's a bias and inequality and such. So yeah, I look forward to that briefing. But it sounds like we're not interested in doing some type of a public fanfare, but actually just getting down to and actually getting some work done and continuing in this endeavor to work toward that end. Does that make sense? Is that agree? Do you agree? Go ahead, Romero, please.
Maybe I can suggest this to the board, as opposed to just say no at this point. Leave your options open. What I understand is you want to see a briefing with Shelley Maria. Will organize that. You also want to see how the ordinance evolve related to the Cultural Diversity Human Rights Council. You also want to see how the Law and Justice Council is going to approach this issue via subcommittee. So maybe after all that is globalized and very broad to you, you may take a similar action. So my suggestion will be to not to say no at this point, but just leave your options open. And those are the steps that I have in terms of the next steps, I believe.
All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tom.
I just like to, maybe this wraps in together, but we talked about as a board, and I appreciated my seatmates joining me in talking about some sort of institutional training, whether it's the Intercultural Foundation or something else. But if that could be brought to us, how would we go about? Is that the right approach? Hiring a consultant? What is the next step that the board could look at to advance that type of institutional training, so that we don't, it's easy for things to just we got so much going on right now, and I understand that it's easy for things to get kicked way down the road. But I think the community expects that we're going to, take some of these issues by the bull by the horn, so to speak, and try to move some of those things forward.
And that's not just the community's expectation either; it's mine as well. And so I'm move to that effort. Move that effort forward and get it done. Was there anything else?
No, sir.
No. Okay. Thank you, Shelley. Thank you very much, and thank you for the good discussion. And I thank Megan Sullivan too, who I've known since the late 90s or early 2000s, perhaps, through Together, for bringing it to our attention as well and keeping her work going on it and focused. Number 7, public testimony, building permit follow-up.
Yeah, this is a follow-up. Last week, Commissioner Edwards highlighted a particular example of a citizen. I'm not going to get to the details of the individual nor the location, because this may be coming to you as a potential quasi-judicial. But let me, at least from the staff point of view, this particular related, we started the official process back in March 2019 by receiving a septic application. The building permit was submitted on May 2018. As a result of the field review, we encountered some unpermitted structure. We have worked with the citizen. Also, there was included on the critical areas, of that particular site. So as a result, we requested to submitted a critical areas report, which the citizen submitted in August 2019. And as going through the process, we reviewed that and with the Department of Ecology as is requested. And also, we also reviewed the third critical area report because that was not necessarily accurate at the beginning in January of this year. That has been approved in terms of the wetland radius and delineation. Now, based on their proposal, it requires a reasonable use exception. And that reasonable use exception needs to be exercised and be reviewed by the hearing examiners. And that application has been submitted, and I believe it's on the docket for the hearing examiners to go through and review this. So it is a very high level. I don't want to get too much into the details. But the key element of this is the reasonable use exception. It currently goes to the hearing examiners. Now, you on the development code docket, you approved this to be revised. In the revision, the staff is going to be proposing is as opposed to go through the hearing examiners, which takes time, takes money to the citizen, is to have that review of the reasonable use exception be done administratively. And that is coming for you to make a decision, I believe, in the upcoming months. So staff has, I believe, recognized the time involved and for a citizen and applicant to go through this reasonable use exception. It, again, takes money and time. So hopefully with the proposal that we're going to be bringing to you to make that an administrative function, it will certainly reduce the time and it will certainly will reduce the expenses that any citizen may be facing if they need to secure a reasonable use exception. I'm just going to leave it like that. But again, if you have any additional questions, I'll be more than happy to answer it.
Commissioner Edwards?
I guess just as an additional follow-up, I haven't looked at the file, but this is the file that party brought in. I've not looked at it other than just the dates. I've just tried to glance through and see the dates. And this activity starts in October of 2018. So yes, maybe a master application might have came in March of 19, but the whole process of working through the government process here for this citizen started in October of 18. That's the earliest date I've spotted so far on any of their communication. And I guess I would ask, when is that hearing examiner's date set for?
I don't have that date yet.
We don't have the date yet. It just, and so this has not been in place for 2 years. It's only been 18, 20 months or something, I guess. So I exaggerated when I said 2 years, but that's the way the citizen relayed the information to me. Now it's going to be, it could be another year. I don't know for sure how long it takes, but I know the county manager is mentioning that we're trying to adjust that process and do a tabletop, because right now, any staff member can just make a determination based on their personal agenda, if you will, that, oh, you can't do this because of this, or you can, or you can't, and force that citizen to expend a lot of money and time. And I think oftentimes what people don't understand in government is time is money to everybody else. These people are living in a pretty rough situation with a travel trailer type thing. They've been approved for their septic. Everything was kind of approved as it moved forward. The building they're talking about, I made a site visit out there. Little chicken house about the size of Brian's area here. 110 square feet, 120 square feet, being called a building is, boy, that's an overstatement by bureaucrats as far as I can see. All I can say is it's gonna come to us, but it's an example of how a citizen, they've got 10 acres out there, plenty of land, plenty of high land. They're told, well, you gotta be 100 feet, or you gotta be 300 feet from this plant and 300 feet from this flower or whatever it is, no gophers, I guess they went all through that already. But it's just exceptional, the delays that we as a government throw on our citizens. And I just wanna do everything I can to alleviate that while we're still protecting the environment. And so these folks, they're gonna be into this 2.5 years by the time they're done, at a minimum.
Are we getting a briefing? We're gonna get this, that may come to the board and we'll get testimony and do the research and get that information then, Mel?
And yes, and I know we're always cautioned about knowing too much before something gets to us in that regard.
So I don't want you skewing my brain yet with that stuff.
Yeah, well, when I got this call, I didn't have any idea we were in that position, so I went and looked at it. And I can tell you, looking at it on a 10-acre property, high ground, yes, there's a couple of wet spots where I don't know, the glacier probably melted about 10,000 years ago or something. There used to be water flow through there, I'm sure. I can refer back to the same group of individuals that allowed the house to be built within 2 months on a property within 200 yards of my house, that the prior owner was told for years, you can't do anything with that property. As soon as they sold that property at quite a loss because they couldn't do anything with it, the county issued the new owner a permit, let them move a creek. It was a terrible example. I would encourage you as fellow commissioners, I know we can never get together, to come take a look at what happens sometimes when personal agendas and preferences get involved. And I know we're looking at fixing this, and I hope we do it soon.
Okay, Commissioner Menser, go ahead.
Well, since Elizabeth's on the phone, I was just going to ask, and Commissioner Edwards touched on it, whether we're allowed to go make site visit out to something like that. And I understand Commissioner Edwards didn't know because I tell citizens I can't do that, and I don't want them to get inconsistent information from the commissioners. Because I know you can't have, if we sit on this, we can't, basically you turn a commissioner into a witness, which is not appropriate legally.
Elizabeth Petridge, Deputy Prosecuting Attorney. The only provision I know where the commissioners can go on site together is in relation to a specific quasi-judicial appeal of a land use permit. And in the past, we commissioners have gone on site, and I believe they have gone together as well. For a situation that has already passed, I think it would be difficult to schedule a meeting. I mean, the whole idea is of whether or not you can schedule a meeting that would be open to the public so that you could go together. The quasi-judicial process is outside the public meeting arena, so that's why the meeting requirements do not apply for site visits under that scenario. But under this scenario, since it is not a quasi-judicial site visit, it would have to comply with the Open Public Meeting Act, which would require notice and permission for the public to come on site so that they could attend the meeting and things like that. So possibly it could be scheduled, but it would have to involve a couple of steps.
Elizabeth, just as a follow-up possibly on that, if they go individually, there's no problem though, is there?
That's correct. And that's also assuming you have the permission of the property owner to do that.
Boy, you'd have the permission of the property owner. They are beyond frustrated on this whole thing.
Okay, so we can do that if we wanted to, just not in concert with each other, not together. And that's fine.
I guess the other issue that I commented on is an already done issue. The house is built, the creek is moved. You can go by and look at that anytime you want. And if you can tell me how that happened, legally, I'd sure like to know how that happened. Sometime in the future, maybe. I'll give you the address if you're interested.
Is there any further discussion on this, Romero? Or do you need any information, or is that just information for us?
No, sir.
Okay,
I
we don't have,
do have one more item.
okay, let's get it going.
There was an article of the Olympian related to this regional airport in South County. And I believe as a result of that, the Office of the County Commissioners have received many emails. And I believe I kind of hard for me to keep track, but I will say probably the span majority, I don't know, probably 99% is in opposition of this. I just want to be a message to the community. There is not a pending decision related to this airport the board is having to do. You discussed that last week, and the decision of the board was not to take any action. And so there is no pending action, as far as I know, for you to take a position related to this proposal, related to this potential airport in South Thurston County. So, and again, a message to the community, I don't have any item for the board to take any action or not related to this particular proposal, unless the board requested for me to bring that item back up again. But as far as I know, you already has decided to take no action on this.
No action from the Board of County Commissioners on regional airport at this point. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Anyway, just a confirmation of that. Thank you.
Okay. So I've got 4 minutes to noon. We don't have time for commissioner items. And we have a noon meeting in 4 minutes with public health. So we're going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Elizabeth, thank you for joining us. And Robin and everybody else I can't see or might be on the phone, thanks for joining us. This meeting is now adjourned.